first session was absolutely, I think, eye-opener from many ways. You had international viewpoints on how nutrition and nutraceuticals are essential in every part of the chain, right from natural therapies right down to geriatrics, right down to ensuring that there is, whether there's a keto happening and therefore what you do in it. And wonderfully conducted, Amit, with a lot of research behind it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
With that, we are coming back to the second part of the session and the concluding part of the session, which is exciting enough. So all stay on with us, please. And it promises to be a CEO club almost coming in together to be able to give insights on a new area of work, which is to give the topic of will Nutra turn the pharma way? And what are we talking about in that? Supplements. I mean, we already heard about the word supplements many times and everybody knows what it implies. But essentially, supplements are that little extra that go beyond food. And we saw that, Ms. Bhaskar had already said that it has to be alongside food. Almost everybody understands that. But the basis is food. But nonetheless, there was a study in 2015, almost 5 years ago, a little more, in the New England Journal of Medicine that published a 10-year study that said that showing nearly that 23,000 patients per year in England were admitted because of an extra dosage or overdosage of nutrition. And they were doing it for various reasons. 25% were doing it because of obesity-related nutrition products that they were consuming, some for sexual function and dysfunction, or dysfunction rather, and other ways. So they found that there is actually this causes problems, and this can cause problems, which is what was addressed earlier in terms of that. The current situation where COVID and nutrition has become a core part of the focus has indeed increased the consumption. We hear of nutritional products actually or nutraceutical products flying off shelves. And that's literally the case. If there are 10 bottles of a particular product that you like, you invariably pick up 10, considering the fact that there is also the lockdown in place. So you don't want to be bereft of your product. That being the case, let's see what the industry is really doing. And is the industry trying to be more responsible in terms of whether it is to do with the product testing, whether it to do with the marketing of it, and various other ways to ensure that the consumption is even inadvertently not misused. So for this, we have the second show, which has the title again to repeat, Will Nutra Evolve the Pharma Way? In that, we have Mr. Venkat, who's MD Genco Pacific Hong Kong, a company dedicated to evidence-based active nutraceutical ingredients. We also have Mr. Shyam Prasad, who's an old friend, and I've met him several times on this platform, MD Vidya Labs, who's equally an Indian MNC with a large amount of, product placement even in Japan, which has worked extensively to proven efficacy ANIs. And Mr. Raf Diabol, CEO of My Health, a leader in sports biotics and with a global play all across. Mr. Milan Patel, who has a dual role, Joint MD Troika, as well as Chairman of IDMA of Gujarat State, who will bring in learnings both from his pharma company as well as from the association that he leads. Mr. Ram Babu, again a friend and who I met recently in Hyderabad, MD Pharma, Pulse Pharma, a very fast-growing pharma company which is applying the pharma principles to nutraceuticals, and Mr. Aniruddha Rajurkar, CEO of Shield Healthcare, who gives us extensive experience at Shield as well as with blue chip companies across the entire divisions. To host this session, I call upon yet another friend and an old colleague, which is basically to do with Ratkim Chottopadhyay, CEO of Esperer Onconutrition. And he's a person who has a wide onco pharma experience before his entrepreneurial start. A first-time entrepreneur, he has really succeeded extremely well in just a few years of starting off his business, which is I think about a couple of years ago, and created a onco nutrition company, which has literally been seeing the limelight in all senses. So I give this platform over to Rotkim, and Rotkim, you can please be the moderator of the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Molly, and thank you, Amit. It's wonderful, the first session, the way it was, the questions and the expert answers was been given. There are a lot of things learning, I think. Nutrify Today, I thank Nutrify Today for doing a fabulous job, and with the news that coming up at such a station, which is really in need of an hour. So thank you, Amit and entire team for offering such a such a wonderful product, which is going to serve in a big way, I believe, in coming days. Uh, well, that will nutraceuticals evolve pharmaceutical way? This is something, I recalled one of my professor in my postgraduate days, nutraceutical professor, he commented on this, similar to this context, that what you're talking about, evolving of nutraceuticals, nutrition has already been evolved. We are yet to find it. So all our efforts are towards finding it. So don't say that nutraceuticals are evolving. It is evolved many, many years ago. So I found it extremely relevant today. So even the subject that we are going to talk and listen to the experts, as Molly said, that is a wonderful panel that we have today. I'm honored to be aggregate the thoughts of the honor today. Uh, this is a big question at this juncture, that will nutraceutical evolve pharmaceutical way? Before we get into the expert's view, let me put it this way. Nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals, the evolving nature, whether it is a comparable or not, there is a debate on that. Secondly, the way a nutraceutical company should evolve, and to compare with the evolvement of a pharmaceutical industry, whether that Apple versus Orange in terms of infrastructure support mindset has been already there or not, again a debatable matter. And thirdly, uh, considering the country's economy, how a nutraceutical play a role to understand, to consolidate it, and how a pharmaceutical plays a role and consolidates entirely different. That is what expert says. I also find it. So in today's session, we are going to find out to a certain specific questions, that how this nutraceutical industry and pharmaceutical industry is, what are those points where it is comparable. Like in onco nutrition phase, where Aspera Nutrition's our company is working, we have been building, nutrition as a companion therapy to these cancer as a disease management. So we are also facing a lot of challenges at a concept level, to buy in the stakeholders, and to fabricate the entire research part in front of the world. Since Molly has already introductions has been made of the brilliant panel that we have, still I would like to take the names quickly, and then I will go to the questions, if you allow me. We have Mr. Ramaswamy Venkatesh, Managing Director of Jane Corp Pacific, Hong Kong-based company dedicated to evidence-based active nutraceutical ingredients. We have Mr. Sama Prasad, again, Managing Director of Vidya Herbs, we all know, an Indian MNC that has worked extensively on evidence-based ANI. Mr. Raf Diablo, CEO My Health, a leader in sport biotechs, very interesting area with a global play. Mr. Milan Patel, we all know, I have been grown with his name many times. Joint MD, Troika Pharma, and Chairman of Indian Drug Manufacturing Association, GSB Gujarat State Board. He brings in his experience from a fast-growing pharma companies, and also learning from industry, being a part of IDMM. We also have Mr. Ram Babu. I know quite a long time of him, and I have a full trust, and is extremely respectful to me in terms of his knowledge, and especially in the application of knowledge in his arena of work. He is the managing director of a fast-growing nutraceutical company that has been applying principles of pharma formulations into nutraceuticals. Excellent. Mr. Aniruddha Rajurkar, I had a chance to interact with him in a couple of times. He's a CEO of Shield Healthcare. He brings in vast experience from the leadership positions in blue chip pharma companies. So this is the veteran panel that we have. I'm happy to moderate these sessions. Let me straight away go to Mr. Venkatesh. I have a very straight question to you. I think this is the questions which open up the discussion and the mind of all of us who are also the viewers. How nutraceutical industry is different from the pharmaceutical in context of active ingredients and go to market. I hope I'm not making the complex question complex. The specific things we would like to know here, that how the pharmaceuticals and nutraceutical ingredients are different when it comes to go to the market. Mr. Venkatesh. We can't hear you. Hello.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks for the question, Mr. Chattopadhyay, and thanks, Amit, for this opportunity to talk again in the Nutrify India conference. Okay, it's a very interesting question which has been posed. And fortunately, I started my career in the pharma industry in the mid 80s with Lupin, and then moved on to Standard Organics, and then Gencor also was started as a pharmaceutical company before we turn focus onto nutraceuticals, and we still have a sizable pharmaceutical presence. We do own pharmaceutical manufacturing facilities also in different places. Now, in terms of evolution, like Mr. Chandramouli rightly said, nutraceuticals have already evolved. Or, sorry, Mr. Chattopadhyay, you said that nutraceuticals already evolved from food. In ancient days, the Greek physician Galen in 30 AD was the first one to talk about food as medicine. And that's why till today, medical preparations with finished formulations are commonly used or termed in Europe as Galenicals. That's where the name came from. So medicine evolved from food, using food as medicine and understanding what in the food has curative properties and then translated into medicine. That's how medicine grew. Now, after the 50s, when allopathic medicine started becoming popular, the pharmaceutical industry laid out clear, specific pathways as to how drug development should be done and how analysis and quality parameters should be set and how they should be marketed for what end users. So, if you look at it, APIs had a set parameter already done in terms of product to market. Products were already decided by originators who did the original clinical trials and showed the therapeutic end benefits. Claims were decided by the by the regulatory authorities on what claims could be made on what specific pharmaceutical. And what India did from the mid 80s onwards was to fill the gap in terms of manufacturing APIs, which were in the past the strength of Italy, Spain, and other European nations, and multiple other Western nations. We brought in high quality and low cost manufacturing. We pioneered it to the world with people like Dr. Anji Reddy starting the trend and then flowing through the whole gamut of leaders today whom we see in the pharmaceutical industry, like Dr. Hamid from Cipla, like the Ranbaxys, the Moripens, everyone. So again, coming back to that, the specialty required today to put a pharmaceutical into a market is more technical and chemical expertise and regulatory expertise. The quality parameters are laid out, the end users and the claims are laid out. All you need to do is to find the right process to make the product, make sure that it complies with the intellectual property, do the regulatory documentation like the drug master files and ANDAs where it's needed for finished product, and price yourself to go to the market and make marketing arrangements either to go as a supplier to of API to a pharmaceutical company or go with your own finished product, developing your own ANDA. So effort was concentrated on the basics in terms of if you look at integration, forward integration or backward integration, the backward integration was in terms of efficient manufacturing, and then more effort was spent and is being spent on the marketing analysis and partnership. Innovation as a step is far lesser in pharmaceutical industry except for specific delivery systems to target faster deliveries of certain molecules, which if you again look overall at the total amount of pharmaceutical molecules in the markets requiring or having innovated, the product which have innovated with novel delivery systems are far few compared to the normal one. So the energies were focused upon efficient production, regulatory, and marketing. Nutraceuticals, you have a challenge. You first have to do your efficient production. Next, your product was not defined by any BP or USP or European pharmacopoeia, any other pharmacopoeia. You had to develop your own quality parameters. There are a few dietary supplements in USP, yes, but not all of them which are sold in the market. And outside of USP, none of the pharmacopoeias except IP have any ingredients what you would classify as dietary supplements having set quality parameters, which means the nutraceutical manufacturers had to set the quality. Then the nutraceutical manufacturers had to tackle regulatory issues. EFSA with the novel food, TGA with their approval, Health Canada, all the approvals were based upon the fact that with the new product, how do you negotiate the regulatory pathway? The pathway was for pharmaceuticals, but even for pharmaceuticals, I've gone through the time when the pathway was not set. Uh, I handled one of the first US FDA audits when I was in Standard Organics in 1980s in Hyderabad, and when their sulfamethixazole was the first drug, second drug in the whole of India to get a US FDA approval. So we knew about drug master file. We knew what was needed. At that point of time, Europe did not need a drug master file. Europe did not have audits. You could just give a sample, get it approved, and sell it. Only in the mid 90s, Europe started the pathway, and then also it was only based on a dossier. Inspections in Europe came only in the second half of the 2000s. So the evolution there was at a different pace. But what was happening is that the regulators started looking at the nutraceutical industry into following similar principles. So the nutraceutical industry has to catch up in a much shorter period what pharmaceutical industry has been doing for decades. So how do you negotiate the regulatory pathway? Today, even today, there's a lot of gray areas in that pharmaceutical regulatory pathways are black and white. Nutraceutical regulatory pathways are very amorphous. That is the challenge. Second, for a novel food, the regulation requirements for a novel food, which were there from end 2000 when EU started the novel food rule first in 2009, from there till today, have undergone multiple iterations and have gone in terms of multiple when it comes to regulatory strictness. Similarly, Australian TGA, the way you list a product in 2010 and the way you list a product today is completely different because Australian TGA considers nutraceuticals as complementary medicine. And today they expect you to meet OTC pharmaceutical documentation, guidelines, and safety regulations before you can register products out there. Health Canada is bringing in its own way of looking at regulations. So you're having the regulatory challenges where you need a complete understanding. And what you also need is claims. In 90s, early 2000s, everybody was making a claim and then wondering how to substantiate it. Then the regulatory authorities like FDA, FTC, Health Canada, TGA, EFSA all started cracking down on claims. When it comes to claims now, the pathway is clearly defined in Canada, clearly defined in EU, clearly defined in Australia, not so clearly defined in US, and each country now has its own minefield. So this would mean the nutraceutical innovation needs to have innovation in manufacturing, innovation in GMP to apply the pharmaceutical GMP standards to manufacture nutraceuticals, which has its own challenges, innovations to meet knowledge and capability to meet regulatory needs, especially safety, because some of the safety criteria which have been put for nutraceuticals go far beyond what's given in pharmacopoeia for pharmaceuticals. The limits are being tweaked a lot. As an example, heavy metals, most pharmacopoeias allow 20 ppm, whereas heavy metals, the US regulation today, because of California Prop 65, is 0.5 ppb. So you're going in that direction. So which are much more stringent. Microbiological requirements, which were not that much in pharmaceuticals, are much more stringent in nutraceuticals. Related substances. In pharmaceutical, related substances were clearly defined in the pharmacopoeia. And the methods of identifying, quantifying, and testing them with the standards have been defined. In nutraceuticals, method development has to be done by the manufacturers. Standards are difficult to get. And the criteria for which related substances are asked for by regulatory authorities is far more stringent than the pharmaceutical side. So these are the challenges nutraceuticals have to navigate. Side by side comes your claims. In pharmaceutical, nobody even thinks about what a claim is because for every drug, the claim is told, the dosage is told, and you don't have a choice. So before you start, you know exactly what drug at what dose you have to sell for what claim. So nobody in the pharmaceutical industry has any basic knowledge of developing claims, even what the lowest nutraceutical company has today, because they had never spent the time and money and brains on that. They don't need to. We need to rack our brains on that, which means we need to design clinical studies, looking at the claims and making sure that how do you conduct the clinical, what's the patient size, what is the effect size of the study, what is the statistical outcome what you're looking for. And what's the period of study? Because different regulatory authorities have different periods. Weight loss now, Health Canada asks for 26-week study. That's a half a year study. EU and Australia use for 16-week study. And cholesterol and testosterone and sugar, people used to do 8-week studies. Now the regulatory authorities are asking for 12-week studies. Like I could go on and on for each categorization. So which means you need to have a knowledge on that and spend your money on those studies. And nutraceutical industry people today take risk which pharmaceutical industry people never had to take, because once you make a pharmaceutical 99% pure identical to the originator, there is zero chance that any clinical trial anywhere is going to fail. Whereas in nutraceutical, in spite of your proof of concept studies like in vitro, in vivo, and then your traditional use and your extract development, till the study is completed, nobody has an idea as to how it's going to turn up. That's a risk nutraceutical companies are taking. So in spite of all that, what you see today is that the nutraceutical industry is making leaps and bounds. And actually, the nutraceutical industry has done more innovation than pharma in terms of bringing concepts to the market, from ideas, starting from manufacturing to regulatory to claims and to effective marketing partnerships. So I would say the differences are that the pathway was more structured for pharmaceuticals. The pathway is much less structured for nutraceuticals. So it's extremely, uh, it's a fantastic achievement till today as to what nutraceutical industry has done with much limited resources than pharma, at the same time scaling much higher regulatory hurdles. I'm
Thank
sorry, my
you. Thank
reply was
you,
long. I hope it makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. Venkatesh. I think you added extreme value by saying, I think once we are talking about that the efficient productions, and you clearly said that API has the set parameters to the go to the market, unlike the ANI. And there the innovations starts. And what you understood is from your answer is very clearly that creativity attains its maximum level when there is no very difficult way to cross it. So I think that constant of not having the set parameters and go to the market and made the nutraceuticals more innovative, and that's how the progress has come in a much faster way. Thank you very much. So we will go to the next questions to Mr. Anuruddha Lajurkar. I know that you are coming from a vast experience in the sales, marketing, productions, investment, everywhere. So I think you are the right person to answer these questions. Why pharma companies are showing interest in building nutrition business? How do you look at these transformations? Mr. Anuruddha.
Thank you, Ratin. First of all, thank you, Amit, and best wishes to Nutrify today for the journey, which has begun well and should go to more heights. Now, coming to the question, why are pharma companies showing interest in Nutra business? Well, the obvious answer is the scale and the opportunity Nutra business has. But before getting to the scale and opportunity which each one of us understands, let me share that pharma companies have not getting interested now. Historically, ever since the evolution of pharma, Nutra was a part of portfolio, whether it is Indian companies or MNCs. If you just look at the VMN as we understand, vitamins, minerals, and natural antioxidants area, that is the second or third ranked therapeutic segment in the industry. It was for decades. It is now still top 5. Now, all these vitamins, minerals, antioxidants were always a part of pharma portfolio. Were always a part of supportive therapy, adjunct therapy, as we understand. So, pharma companies' interest in Nutra was always visible. Yes, what has happened of late is that it has become much more augmented. And why is that? I think Mr. Venkatesh alluded to that significantly, because the innovation in pharma is getting more and more difficult, especially on the chemical side. On the biologic side, there is still a lot of innovation which is going on. But on the chemical side, on various disease areas, you don't see a huge amount of innovation coming across, even from the West. For example, what we all are facing, COVID, a large amount of innovation which has all come in ever since the advent of COVID-19 has been in the domain of biologicals, which is vaccines, and in the domain of nutrition. Third comes the area of treatment through either biologics or through chemical entities which are currently underway even today. So this predominantly illustrates the opportunity and the mindsets which pharma has. The opportunity which the world has is significantly high in Nutra. Pharma was always having Nutra in their portfolio, but as one can see that innovation and the possibility of very, very attractive market, pharma will look to Nutra. Let me also add a few aspects of pharma business which makes them very, very appropriate in terms of exploiting this Nutra opportunity. And what is that? See, all pharma companies, whether it is generic pharma companies or innovation-driven pharma companies, have great understanding of few things. Most of these my co-panelists have spent sufficient time in pharma, including Rocktem. So we understand that any pharma company as an entity has great understanding of diseases, the patterns of the diseases. They understand the patient journey very well. They understand exactly what interventions are required at what stage and what is going to be the outcome through these interventions, because that's how the medicine gets designed. What are the treatment guidelines? What are the algorithms getting used? All good pharma companies have great KOL connect, which keeps getting adding value to their understanding every day as the medicine gets evolved. And all good pharma companies also have a mechanism for evidence generation. Now, all this concoction of ability which every pharma company has is what is required to succeed essentially in Nutra as well. It is very much applicable in not exactly in the same fashion which is applicable in pharmaceuticals. Mr. Venkatesh said it very elaborately, but the inherent ability and this capability built in the ecosystem for a pharma company has advantage with a pharma company when you look at a Nutra opportunity. The understanding of disease, the understanding of patient journey, what interventions, what are the treatment possibilities, what is the outcome, when can it happen, how to measure it, how to present it. And with all this understanding, they have a demonstrated model of making it commercially successful. And when you have both the ability to evidence, ability to formulate, ability to evidence, ability to prove, ability to communicate, and ability to make a business out of it, I think you have a very, very advantageous position for making something big in this huge opportunity of Nutra. So these two elements of historical acquaintance with Nutra and a structural advantage of capabilities in the pharma are naturally driving all the pharma companies, not just in India, across the globe, to explore what they can bring to the table when it comes to Nutra. And this is bound to get stronger because the next horizon of growth for any medicine is evolutionary, and that is started to come from whether it is biologics or whether it is nutritionists. So these two horizons are started to make them really contribute well. And as the pie for both of these grows, you will see more and more pharma companies getting interested, and more entrepreneurs like you, Rocktem, might get supported over a period of time. That's my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Anurag. I think you hit the nail by saying that the component of nutraceuticals was hidden in the history of pharmaceutical evolvement. And also you said that large ability of creating a pipeline, validating the science and go to the market, knowing the KOLs, And the more on the top of it, you mentioned that knowing the disease very well, which is probably has made the pharmaceuticals companies more interested to come into the nutraceuticals. Absolutely, we got the point. And in this context, I cannot control to share one thing which I have gone through. Uh, Being a nutraceuticals company, I have been fund has been raised by the pharma group of companies. So I have faced these questions. In fact, I asked these questions back to my investor on those days. Why you are investing in a pharma company, in a, startup nutrition company, rather than building it of your own. So the chairman answered very, very categorically. I think that gave me a lot of way to go forward, and it is a very relevant context today what you said. He clearly said that a pharma company, a large pharma company, has got the ability to see or to create a pipeline of the products for next 15 years. That's how pharma R&D works. And whether the nutraceuticals companies has got an agility to cope up with the newer markets, newer regulatory norms, and this thing. So if these two things comes together, then I think history can be created. And I took that point, and I see the same resonance on your answer also. Thank you, Anurag. We'll come back to you again. Stay tuned. I'm going to that in this context now. I'm going to the another question, which to another veteran panelist that we have, Mr. Sam Prasad. We nowadays we see that clinical nutrition space has been well cultivated. Everybody is claiming that they are into the clinical nutrition space. So that I would like to answer, and I request to listen to other viewers and the world to what the veteran answers to this. What role should be played by Nutra R&D companies? I mention again, what role should be played by Nutra R&D companies to support clinical nutrition space? It means the companies who are aspiring to come or are already there in the clinical nutrition space. What is the role of existing established Nutra R&D companies to support them? Sir,
good evening. Good evening, Mr. Raktam and the panel, everybody here, and all the listeners and viewers. This is a very fantastic question and very in need of the hour. This R&D, research and development in nutraceutical, is a very, very important fundamental thing in our industry, which is lacking so far now. There are investors, there are entrepreneurs who want to do nutraceutical business, they want to do herbal extract business, they want to flourish in the industry, but the main focus has to be the emphasis on how to create a new product or an innovative product and efficiency-based product. How good is your product? How better is your product? And what are the toxicity levels? What are the contamination levels? What is the difference between pharmaceutical product and nutritional products? Nutritional products are always agro-based products. From the soil. From the soil, farmer uses pesticides, chemicals, and these kind of things. What are pharmaceuticals? All carbon, fuel-based hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons from the fossil. And these carbons doesn't have any pesticides or this kind of impurities. So we need to work very hard in R. R is research. Development is process development. And the focus should be on research and development of the phyto compound which you are looking at, and what purity level. We say 10% of this extract useful for this, and what is the 90%? Who knows? So we need to do a lot of research on that. Pharmaceutical, there is no chance for 10%, 20%. 99 point. I am also from pharma background. I have done drug synthesis. I have done organic synthesis. I worked with a lot of chemicals before coming into herbal industry. So I know the pharmaceutical API synthesis involves preciseness. A plus B is equal to C. Chemical reaction, if it is completed, it will give 100% pure compound. Of course, there are related substances but these related substances are defined in the USP-DP. This 0.2% of related substance are allowed, and 99.8% should be the pure compound. Otherwise, it does not comply to the USP or BSP. It is rejected. The branch is rejected. Whereas in nutritional or herbal extract product, there is no such rule. There is no such regulatory affair, or we don't have the Nutracopia, what we can call it. We should have more regulatory affair, bodies who really need to, come out with the specification of each molecule, each product of natural products, what we are working, and work to achieve towards that. The research institutions within our respective countries should develop such a mechanism, whereas it will be helpful for the industrialists or the entrepreneurs who are trying to start the business, should be able to decide what kind of molecules and what is the purity level and what percentage of purity and effectiveness. And where is the, what is the next? You have got a very good compound, but what is the effect? We say all natural, is 100% natural product, there is no toxicity, blah, blah, blah. But there might be hidden toxins, there may be aflatoxins. So more we need to study into acrotoxins, aflatoxins, acrotoxin A, B, all these natural product seeds and all this contains aflatoxins. They are toxins. This fungi leave the residues, the aflatoxins, and then it is an impurity. It is not good for the body. If he is eating impure product, it will lead to several disadvantages. And all the good effects of the molecule or natural product, what he is doing, will go into waste. As long as we are not able to deliver 100% zero defect product, what we will be aiming for. Therefore, the next step is research and development is from the agriculture, tissue culture, coming to the cultivation, harvesting the goods come to the factories and the manufacturing facility, quality testing. Quality testing should have several parameters. You look into microtoxicity, heavy metals, bacterial loads, E. coli, salmonella, fungus, everything they have to do, all these studies, and then evaluate the farm product which arrived to the factory before going to extraction. Not going into blindly production. Oh, that raw material has come, we have taken for extraction. No. We need to define the vendor. We need to educate the farmers. We have to bring in the farmers into the factories and show them what we are doing, what kind of extracts we are doing to guarantee our customers ultimately the end benefit, the people who are getting the benefit on the streets, who are eating your bill. Okay. So this kind of awareness has to come into the farmers who are not using harsh chemicals, and the same awareness should be created inside the factory also. Manufacturing methods shouldn't use chlorinated solvents, shouldn't use harsh solvents. You should use very, very acceptable solvents, and then supercritical fluid extractions. Zero solvent residue is one of the best thing that we can do if we improvise our process, and what benefits we can. There is always a process of column extraction technology where we need not use any harsh solvents. There are a lot of things. If you do innovation, you can derive a product with zero defect. There is no harsh solvents at all. We can remove all whatever solvents. Without solvents, we can do with a very safe solvent also, water and ethanol. So these are all the process. So once it is entered into the factory and you are in the extraction mode, in process controls, the decomposition, the byproducts. If you are cooking up, what you are doing in extraction? We are putting the raw material, we are putting water or solvent and then cooking up. It is a kitchen. So we are keep on boiling. So what happens is some of the active ingredient volatile compounds may escape in the steam, or it may degrade. So we have to fine tune what is the degradation molecule. A certain compound may degrade to another molecule which is not required for the body. So we need to focus on all these fine tuning aspects, and then a lot of the already existing industry, I mean, the product manufacturers can do to the startup entrepreneurs. Of course, we can help them the guidance and how to do the business of manufacturing and nutraceuticals, and we are mainly into B2B business. So the supplement business is another part of the story. So as far as the active ingredient is concerned, you see a flower, you see a leaf, you see a root, you are able to visualize the compound in that, a scientist. That is the innovation. I see a phytosterol in that, which is good for increasing the testosterone. The Egyptian doctor was talking about testosterone levels. Okay, we have worked on a lot of phytosterols. These phytosterols has no side effects, but it will increase the test. So if the scientist has to visualize what is the active safe compound in that, which can benefit to the need of the hour. For example, immune boosting. Immune boosting, how it can see, it is immune boosting is in what we are in nutraceutical or eye particle. We have to focus on the not the symptomatic relief. I have a pain, I have to eat a painkiller, I want immediate relief. I want to work now. I have a headache, I have to eat a ibuprofen or paracetamol, and then I have to start work. But at the same time, it may work for a 1 hour or 2 hours, but you are suppressing the activity. You are suppressing the activity of the pain, which is the enzyme, whatever it is. You are suppressing it. It is the maintaining of the disease is in pharmaceutical. Whereas in the nutraceutical, we have, if we focus on R&D, research and development, more and more, and fine-tuning the regulatory affairs and the activity and efficiency, we can work on the cause of the disease, the cause of the prevention, why the pain is coming.
Okay, sir, I think I'll come back to you on this particular point. You raised another point which is very important. Definitely, I'll come back to you on this. But what I could pick up from your version, it's very important that you talked about Nutracopia as an approach, which makes a lot of sense in connect context, and especially the companies who are into the clinical nutrition space. And secondly, you have mentioned a very important point that research institutions to come has a role to play, especially in the identifying the purity level, or to increasing enhancing the efficacy or understanding the efficacy of the ingredients of the finished product. I think these are the two major things at which is very important action points I would see at this juncture, which can be a big support for the companies who are into nutraceutical space, especially in the clinical nutraceutical space. Fine, thank you. So we are now, let's move on. I would go for a little controversial areas now, because we have a person who has handled such controversies very efficiently in his career. Mr. Minal Patel. Does the Indian regulations should be more stringent to address rampant misuse of label claims, provided, if we agree, there is any misuse? If yes, then what are your suggestions in this? What actions can be taken up? Hello, we can't hear you, sir.
Thank you very much, Nutrify, for giving this opportunity to me. And this is one of the very important or very close to my heart subject, because we are into nutraceuticals, and we have transited from pharmaceuticals to nutraceuticals. So we treat nutraceuticals at par with pharmaceuticals. I don't think there is any much of a difference, except for establishing the standards and compliance with various kind of legislation, which has been discussed much in detail, so I'll not dwell into that. But as far as the purity claims are concerned, if that is a question with respect to what is on the label and what are the contents inside, and the nutraceutical extract industry or the ingredient industry has progressed a lot, and Vidya Herbs being one of the torch bearers in that area. So, frankly, when this question came to me, I went through the FSSAI Act, and I was very pleasantly surprised that it really takes care of a lot of things. When we talk of claims being made with respect to the ingredients and its content. So, I mean, all the general parameters have to be matched with the, the relevant pharmacopoeia. In our case, it is Indian pharmacopoeia. So if it's a capsule or if it's a tablet, then it has to comply with the dissolution and the disintegration time and the weight variation and whatever the other parameters are. If you talk of the quality parameters, yes, if it is in any of the pharmacopoeia, which many of them are not, then you have to follow that, or you have to follow the codex, or you have to follow the WHO expert committee on additives. But the best part is that the FSSAI puts the onus on the manufacturer that you have to declare your quality standards. You have to put it on paper and submit it, that what is going to be your claims of the ingredients which you are going to put in the finished product. And now with the pharmacognosy and the pharmacology science being, progressing at a very rapid rate, extraction technologies being, rapidly progressing, I don't find it difficult at all to comply to the claims. But the point is that India, if you talk about the Indian context, it's such a huge population and such a huge country that only thing is that it's the implementation of the already existing rule could clean up a lot of things on the market as of now. Giving an example, in 2000 we are making a herbal extract under a patent, not a patent, but under a right of an NGO who used to source these wonderful extracts from not the quacks, but the Ayurvedic or the traditional treatment givers in the villages. And he had compiled, and he is a Padma Shri Award winner, and he was running an NGO, and he licensed out that product. And that time, to be very honest, 1998, 1999, we used to extract the herbs in a method which was provided by that Vaidya or by that, by the practitioner. And we had to be able to do only the TLCs and the identification of the marker compounds. And the product, since science had progressed so much, it recently caught back our attention, and we realized that we can't market this product in the current time. So we handed over the project to a extract company based out of Bengaluru. And we said that this is what the herbs are, and this is what we are doing. We want to identify the marker compounds, and we want to really specify and put it on the label. This is what is going to contain not only the name of the herb, but the content of the marker compound. And surprisingly, it is not even in this COVID time, within 60 to 75 days, they came up with the whole identification and the quantification of the marker compounds. And instead of doing the extraction, we are going to buy the extract from them. So there is a big requirement to establish this to improve the, what you call the image and the reputation of nutraceuticals in this country. Good companies are coming in, but at the same time, I don't think so. FSSAI as such, it might need certain more clarifications. The regulations are there, the GSRs are there. It might need certain specific roadmaps once the implementation begins. But right now, I think there's a lack of manpower, and it's such a huge task. The things are in place, but they just need to get rolling now. So if that happens, I'm sure the qualitative parameters would shoot up very fast. I'm pretty satisfied with what the FSSAI put on paper as of now, at least. Thank you.
Okay, great. I think you have precisely answered the things. One thing I found it very relevant and extremely point to be taken. You made a statement that FSSAI makes the manufacturer owners of carrying out the do's and don'ts, which a manufacturer has to understand it. The responsibility has to be understood. And I think you wanted to mention that answer is there. It is more than regulations, considering the industry's periphery. It's more about how we take the responsibility. And also you mentioned about the image and the reputation of the country is also relates with the how we carry forward this kind of responsibility.
Absolutely, Captain.
Very
rightly put.
Thank you. Absolutely, it's excellent point, and I wish we could have continued the discussions, but we have a time slot. So since we have already entered into a controversial area, so I would like to, before I go to Ram Babu for another beautiful questions, I have one question for Vaniveda to answer another controversial questions. I hope you would, I'm sure you would love to answer this question. Does corruptions or unethical approaches is hampering the built-up responsible nutrition in India? If yes, where industry leaders and policymakers can act to reverse it?
Well, responsible nutrition, the word itself, I think, gives a clue to the answer. It is responsibility of the nutraceuticals businesses to ensure that they stay away from these practices. Because principally, if I what I believe is what I'll say, that if you want to build a business for longer term, for continuous growth and sustain the business, it cannot be built with practices which cannot be sustained. So unless the practices are sustainable, right, and are following the law of the land, your business will never grow sustainably. If this principle is understood by all the people in nutraceuticals, I think the responsibility what they exhibit will be much more visible. Coming to corruption or marketing practices, uh, there are two levels of issues when it comes to nutraceuticals. One, I think Mr. Millen also alluded to it, the claims or the regulatory pathway or the evidence, the technical aspect of the nutraceutical, and second is the marketing aspect of the nutraceutical. I'll not get into detail of regulatory or a claim, but it is important to understand that if you want to build a responsible nutrition, the claim has to be absolutely evidenced, which is acceptable to the customer, which is at the top of the pyramid. The KOL in this case, if it is a doctor, if it is nutritionist, the topmost nutritionist in the geography. So unless the claim is evidenced, your responsibility just starts there, it doesn't end there. Because in nutrition, the currently which disservice which is happening is huge claims and claims which cannot be proved. There are claims of vanishing COVID, there are claims of disappearing diabetes. Well, these claims do a lot of disservice to the nutrition area. So obviously, Nutrify today and all of us, including myself and the co-panelist, I think we have to exhibit the responsible behavior in ensuring that these such claims without evidence and the regulatory pathways which both Mr. Venkatesh and Mr. Milan detailed out have to be followed. Mr. Shyam Prasad said in terms of quality parameters, they have to be laid out. There is no nutracopia, but you have to self-govern it. That's where the responsibility comes in. So technically, I think as this ecosystem becomes cleaner, as the ecosystem becomes much more robust, whether the framework is available or not available, responsibility lies with the leaders in any industry. So the leadership, when it decides to behave responsibly, the nutrition business will become much more responsible. That's the technical part of it. On the marketing aspect of it, I think the opportunity is so huge that the demand or the allure of not following ethical marketing practices, whether it is consumer, direct to consumer, or whether it is through doctors, or whether it is through any channel, e-channel, can be easily avoided if we focus on the end outcome. And any business with ethical practices as per the law will only flourish over a period of time. So I do believe the responsible nutrition has to be created by all the players in the ecosystem. And I would also request Amit and Nutrify today to ensure that this responsible aspect of nutrition is highlighted in each of the conversations so that it builds as a culture, at least in this community of Nutrify today. So marketing practices, I will also say one more thing. In every industry, there are bad apples. In every part of the society, there are a few elements which are not aligned, but they should not define what that industry or that society is. What should be defining the society or industry is what the leaders and what the behaviors are exhibited. So it has to be a conscious effort to ensure that the responsible nutrition becomes responsible by demonstration, by ensuring quality, by following regulatory pathways, and by having claims which are justified and evidence. And then slowly, as the culture improves, we will see the image getting significantly. Thanks. Thank you, Raptin.
Okay, great. So one point is very, very clearly you said, probably that is a message you left for the leaders at this juncture. Ki if you want to go through the, that growth lies in the sustainability. So for the sake of opportunistic, low-hanging fruits, unethical practice is not something which to be practiced. So leaders should always focus to the long term and the sustainability of the business. And for that, the short-term sufferings maybe has to be handled. So thank you. So we will, though it is again a big subject to discuss, a lot of debates are involved into this. We have again time constant. We will go straight away to Ram Babu, another veteran who has efficiently bridged the technical and commercial knowledge together, as well as the pharma's good of pharma, and to bring those good of pharma to bridge up the weakness of so-called weakness of nutraceuticals. So I have a question to him. What are the gaps in Indian Nutra R&D approach in context of competing global market for Indian companies?
Yeah, thank you, Raktim. So finally, I got the chance to speak. I've been waiting, and thanks, Nutrify India and Amit. So now this is very pertinent question that as of now, most of the nutraceutical companies in India have been focusing only Indian requirements. We have not really focused much on the global requirement. I think the major difference, what I've seen, the trends, what I've seen between the global market and India, is that in India, we are focusing more on formulations. Not much of research is happening in terms of developing the ingredients with the proper clinical studies. Whereas the Western world is focusing more on ingredients, and they are developing the ingredients, and they are spending a lot of energies and efforts in supporting them and validating them with the clinical trials. So I think that is where I think Indian industry also should focus. Now we have a lot of resources in terms of our phytoceuticals. I mean our herbal compounds. So many herbal ingredients can be commercialized. They can be standardized. They can be characterized. Like some of the companies like Sham, Mr. Sham, and Vindhya Herbs are already doing this work. So I want, and then of course Gencar specific is also doing that kind of work. So we want more and more companies should be coming in India, so that we make a mark in the global market. So I think with the formulations, what happens, every market, there are local players who are trying to have their own formulations and then sell them. There is not much of an opportunity for you to export the formulations and market them in even the emerging markets. But the opportunity is more for ingredients, that to the clinically validated ingredients. And there is an opportunity for formulations with the good delivery technologies. I think we also have to seriously focus on delivery technologies, because today the nutraceuticals in supplement form, because at least in pharmaceuticals we have certain standards where we have to prove the bioavailability equivalence, and we prove that our product is equivalent to the other innovator. But in nutraceuticals, we don't have such standards. We don't have such regulations also, asking for it. And then, each company, they try to formulate using their own, excipients, their own process technologies. And then we are not very sure that product is going to behave the same way versus some, other brand. So now for us to get that, the more believability, we need to do we need to do clinical studies even with our own formulations, and we need to have ingredients which are backed by the clinical studies.
Great. Thank you, Ramabu. I think very quickly you said, you categorized that India's nutraceuticals is focusing too much, more of formulations, whereas the global market and Western market is mainly ingredients focused. That is one thing you have mentioned it. Another very important point, I think, is you have mentioned it, and we see that a lot of progress has happened in recent past. That is in improving the delivery system. Still, the industry, the infrastructure may not be supported, or the funding requirement may not be supported at this juncture. But yes, delivery technology is something which brings the efficacy more precisely of the nutraceuticals. Thank you. So we will move to the next. I'm sorry to have to keep you wait so long. I'm really sorry, but the questions that I have for you, what are your suggestions for Nutra startup companies who are focusing consumer-based portfolio to do justice on scientific claims? So there are two parts of it. One, the consumer-based portfolio who are looking, the scientific claims linked with the scientific claims, and they are a startup. So what are your, suggestions towards that?
So thank you very much for having me here today, and it was interesting. I was not waiting, I was listening to the other people in the panel, so it's no problem at all. So to come back to your question, to be honest, as a startup company, we started 4 years ago, and we have a consumer-based portfolio. So we are really focusing on what's the need of the consumer. But at the same time, we have a top-down strategy. So what we did was, and I want to refer to Mr. Venkatesh's explanation of the approach, the pharma approach. I believe the regulatory for the food supplements in Europe, as I speak, and I believe it's the same in other countries, maybe not in the US, but for Europe, we see that it's also very, very, very regulated, so that you just have to stick to the regulation. Because if you want to do responsible nutrition, you have to stick to the regulation, because that's basic for me, that you have a communication that is aligned with the way the government wants you to communicate. Otherwise, you are going into conflict, and that's not helping the nutraceuticals market, and that's not what I want at the long run. At the same time, it's important that, and I want to add something about the nutraceutical thing. We use this word a lot, but my experience in Europe is that the government doesn't know this word. They just know pharmaceutical and they know food, and there is no category between, and that's hard, because you cannot say that you have a therapeutic effect. At the same time, you have this wonderful clinical trials and all this wonderful clinical evidence. And what we do is we stick to the communication that we are allowed. But at the same time, we build our own clinical trials, and we go to the key opinion leaders, and we explain the evidence with our ingredients, and we convince them, because what we see is there is a need. There is a need for science. And so I would suggest for startup companies, just build your science, go to the people who have to choose if your product is suitable for their consumer or not, and convince them to prescribe your product, search for the needs in the market like we did. And what we see is that they're embracing our ingredients. The key opinion leaders are embracing our ingredients very easy, because they like our positioning. They like how we do our clinical evidence. And at the same time, on consumer level, it's hard, because we had to stick to the regulation. And that means that you have very general claims, and that make it very tough to differentiate from other competitors in the market. So I hope that's a good answer to your question.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
We may have to close in 5 minutes. Sorry, we are.
We'll do that. We have completed almost one round. So, Raf, I think you simply said, very simple way you said, follow the regulations as a basic of any consumer focused startup. And secondly, you said nicely, very nicely, I think there is a point to be taken, and especially the company like me also, that how you are propagating the science, communicating to the science to the consumer. You have to make the science simpler. So that's 2 points is very clearly and a good take-off point for the startups. Next round of, since we have 5-7 minutes time to wrap up, so I would just go to Ram Babu once again, and I will ask his quick reactions to it. How do you see, because you left the answer last questions in this note, so I'm just extending to that. How do you see ingredients-based formulation claim versus clinical validation-based finished formulations claim? Where are the pros and cons? Very quick, if you can give some aspects.
So if you are using a validated ingredient, it depends on what kind of formulation you are putting. If you are putting into a simple powder formulation, not much of changes are happening with that ingredient. But if you are trying to put it into a tablet or a capsule or some other format, then you definitely need to validate, because you don't know what is happening to that ingredient. So whatever the benefits that you claim with the ingredients cannot be related to the formulation. So how it is undergoing the changes, you can't control it. But if it is a simple dry blend kind of powders, then probably you can straight away go ahead and claim whatever is applicable to the ingredient.
Great, thanks for a quick answer to that. I have one more question to Mr. Milan Patel, that what are your suggestions, quick suggestions to rationalize scientific claims, considering the constant of nutraceutical industry over pharma? What are the quick suggestions for rationalized scientific claims for the companies?
Ratim, there was an emergency and Milan had to leave, so he would not be there.
Okay, fine. So last questions I will ask to Mr. Sam Prasad again, that how do you overcome the over-awareness versus right-awareness issues? Over-awareness versus right-awareness issues from industry stakeholder side. From industry stakeholder sides, please mind that.
Yeah, talking very frankly, right awareness is the need of the hour. Right awareness and communication to the people that are consumer awareness is very important, and the labeling of the products and whatever they use in the product and what efficacy for each molecule, the customer should know what he is eating. The awareness more should be on scientific. Being a scientific company, I tell you, because the science is very important. Science plays a very important role here. So what the consumer is eating, which molecule is eating from plant source, and what purpose, what is benefiting out of it, which way is benefited from it is more important. Or just over awareness is just, this helps for this and blah, blah, marketing. This thing is not because the product will not work ultimately. Because we are more focused in over awareness and making the people know that this works for everything. You mix 10 herbs and we say that it works for everything. It works for indigestion, it works for blood pressure, it works for gut health, everything. We should not do that. We should really educate. That's why from the education system itself, there should be reform. That a portion of science should be on nutraceuticals or science from plant science. Okay, they understand exactly what is application, and then from the basic stage itself, he understands. As he was telling that European drug authorities or anywhere drug control, they don't know anything about herbal extract. They don't know. They know food ingredient. They value us as a food ingredient only. They look at it as a food ingredient. They will not say it is even nutraceutical also, they don't call it. It's a food ingredient. It is going into foods, that's all. Food supplement.
So basically you are talking about the quality of the content of the awareness, right? So that is only the over. Yes. Thank you very much. I think we have overtime. So though I have a list of questions, I cannot go through at this juncture, but it was wonderful. I think the experts talks about the pure sense of responsible nutrition, which is the core objective of, I believe, the nutrition today, which they want to make the entire the global awareness on it. Over to Amit.
Amit, over to you for closures, please.
Thank you very much. And I think we overshot this. So sorry from my side, actually, but it is such an amazing conversation. I would have never wanted to stop. But nevertheless, on a conclusion, I had purposefully chosen two different sessions together because one was very healthcare professional oriented and second is very industry oriented. But then they both are pointing to one area, and there's one conversation that FSSI also mentioned, which I like to highlight. So let me start by saying, from Ayurveda of golden age of India to losing it to chronic invasion in the country to onset of new era of vitamania in America about a century back to onset of reductionist approach to developing nutraceuticals to evolution of nutraceuticals as adjuncts and supplements moving to much lesser role for something extra, as the dictionary means for supplements. I'm sure you'd have seen the recent regulatory initiative in redefining micronutrient dose, particularly in India. And then recent inclusion of dietitians as a part of Government of India Allied Health Council, which empowers them a lot. And it is all hinting at one direction. Nutraceuticals, so there's already an internal engine running. Nutraceuticals will evolve as evidence-based, high science adjuncts, which would be a specialty of healthcare professionals, including dietetics. It will move away from the domain of consumers. And then there will be emergence of another category, which we casually call it as supplements, which supplements at that period of time would be the very low dose ingredients that can be used as top up to the food, quality of food being consumed, and not being used as the main reason for being healthy, as the trend is becoming nowadays in the consumer. So the future is going to be very high science, very healthcare professional driven, dietitians driven, and the supplements, as I just said, would evolve into something extra, which supplements mean, and the focus from regulators will push the consumers or nudge the consumers to healthy eating rather than indulging in packaged nutraceutical products, which is not a preferred thing in near future. So have a lot of things to share, but then again, since we have overshot, I would want to put this to close, and I really want to thank once again Asidus and Sidecosa and then other sponsors like Xeon Life Sciences, Avishkar Pharma, who have made sure that this event goes great. We have had sponsors like Trias, Shield Healthcare, Thinsol, and Numix. I'm very delighted whenever a startup comes in and sponsors it. That's the spirit of Nutrify today. We work with a lot of startups, and when they start growing, they come back and they contribute to Nutrify today growth, and that makes me very happy. Numix is one of them. Sidecosa is another, which is again a startup which is growing very fast. So that's about it. Thank you very much for your time today, and it was really meaningful. So we'll process this video and it will go on Nutrify Today channel in about few weeks. Not few, so a few days time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All the best.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
gentlemen. Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.